Okay, so this is a review of MultiShine Designs custom buttons. I have them in my controller from Control and Color that I reviewed last time, and I'm just going to be talking about how they stack up compared to stock buttons, which parts of them that came in this worked and which ones didn't really, and just what I think of them in general. To start off, let's talk about the face buttons. Let's talk about what I really like about them. The face buttons are amazing. Like, they, in terms of quality and how sturdy they feel like the stock buttons, if not actually maybe better. I'm a huge fan of these. They feel great. They look great. I think they make my controller pretty darn gorgeous, if I do say so myself. I'm a huge fan of these. So each set of buttons, each set of custom buttons comes with 2 triggers, a Z button, 4 face buttons, a start button, a D-pad, and then you can also buy, and that's $10 US, and then you can also buy sticks. So they have a C stick and an analog stick, which is in here. Start button feels like a start button, nothing to complain here. One thing I did notice, the D-pad is weirdly mushy. And I checked to make sure that it's not like I didn't close my controller on the conductive rubber underneath. It like legitimately does not feel like super good to press compared to a stock D-pad. So the D-pad I had, which was not this one, it was another painted white D-pad that I had in here. This white looks a little nicer and it matched up with these buttons, so that's why I put this one in and I'm leaving it in. But it does feel kind of mushy. So if for some reason you map your buttons in PM or in Smash 4 or something to the D-pad, I would not recommend these, but I don't know why you'd be doing that anyway, because the GameCube D-pad is not really noted for being excellent. You may notice that not all of the buttons are put in, namely the Z button and the L trigger, as well as from the set of sticks I bought, the analog stick is not in. So far what I love the face buttons. They're great. Everything looks great, by the way. There's nothing about this that I don't like the look of. That's not my issue. I'm talking the things that I take issue with. None of it is about the way they look, because everything looks gorgeous. What I take issue with for some things is the functionality. So the Z button is a useless piece of shit. That being said, for the $10 price tag, it doesn't matter if you don't use every button, because Battle Beaver, I think, charges $5 to $10 a button anyway. And you can't get mix and match buttons from MultiShine, which is, that's kind of whatever. But for a full set of beautiful buttons, beautiful fit, like, I would pay $10 for just that, like for just the 4 face buttons. But you also get the Z button and the triggers and the D-pad and the start button, and to me that's huge. So it's definitely still worth the price tag. But I should note, if you're buying it for the Z button legitimately did not fit into my controller. I can't use it. It will not go into my controller. I can get it in, but it's so big that it A, will not move, and B, I can't really close up my controller very well. It doesn't, it won't screw in super nicely, and it feels, you can tell something's not quite right. It also doesn't have the little metal bracing in the bottom, and I don't know if I'm supposed to take it out of, take the bracing out of a Z button, but I don't really want to do that because it doesn't fit anyway. And honestly, in my opinion, it really should just come with the metal in there anyway. So if you're looking for a Z button, unfortunately, it's not really the place to go. I would instead recommend, very much instead recommend using Controller Chaos. You kind of have to buy a whole controller to use those buttons though, so that does kind of suck. I'm not sure. I don't think Battle Beaver offers Z buttons, but if they do, then I'd try those first. This is not the place to get your Z buttons. It sucks because I was kind of thinking, hey, like, tell me that shit wouldn't look rad as hell. I think it would, but it does not. It doesn't fit. So that's kind of a bummer. Next up, this is also not useful at all. You just don't use it. If you are buying a set of control sticks, not because you like the look, but because you need a replacement control stick, I cannot recommend this at all. With a GameCube analog stick, and they give a disclaimer. To their credit, they give a disclaimer. It says, yeah, these do not feel like official GameCube analog sticks. We know that. So to their credit, they do say that. I mostly bought it for the C stick, and I'll talk about that in a sec. But the analog stick, so on a GameCube controller, the bottom of the stick is, the underside of the stick is hard plastic, or a much harder rubber anyway, than the top, and the top is quite grippy and soft. This whole thing is very soft. The underside of it, as well as the top, is very soft. And I did have this in here originally, and again, it looks nice, right? So it's kind of a bummer, but and people on the website, I don't think people on the website have really good reviews of this. So on the website it says, oh yeah, it feels different, but I got used to it within minutes. You literally cannot SDI with this thing in. So when I had it in, see that clicking noise, or you hear the clicking noise? Feels great. That's what you'd expect from a GameCube controller. With this, you get like a mushing sound, and because the rubber on the bottom is so soft, you actually get stuck between gates on your controller. So you would, my analog stick was getting caught in between the gates when I would try and SDI. So here and here, it would stick. So I can move this really like a full range of motion, very quick. Like. Just got a SDI, like it's no big deal. But with this, it was really a hassle, and it does not move freely or feel good in the control stick. But you know what? That's fine. I was aware of that. I was aware of that when I bought this. I was hoping to be pleasantly surprised, but I wasn't disappointed because that's what I was expecting. However, the C stick, oh my god. The C stick is actually better, in my opinion, than a stock C stick. It is so goddamn nice. It is absolutely gorgeous. So, one thing you may notice from looking at it, the nub, or the nipple as some people call it, is actually a little bigger. And so far playing on this thing, I have far preferred it to the regular C-Stick. Now, I have never, in my entire Melee lifespan, ever been like, I hate the C-Stick, fuck the C-Stick, it's too small. Like, I've never once thought that. I know some players, like SFAT, for example, I don't know if he still has this, but in 2016, I believe, I saw his controller had two of these. So it had two of these fatter analog sticks, and one of them was down here at the C-Stick. And I think that was to help him with his Shine Bears, because he preferred it that way. This is a perfect balance. So not only is it slightly bigger than a C-Stick, it also, or like slightly bigger than a stock C-Stick, or slightly wider than nipple. It's still considerably smaller, as you can see, than this. But it's just like it's a more comfortable size. Like, people could say that GameCube controllers sometimes feel like they were made for baby hands. This does not feel like it was made for baby hands. This feels like a grown-up C-Stick. And I absolutely adore the feel of it. It is the best C-Stick I have ever owned, without a doubt. And while it might not be worth for you to spend $10 just to use a C-Stick, even if the quality is enhanced, if you have the money and you want to complete a color set like this on your controller, definitely worth it. The C-Stick is so nice. Arguably one of my favorite things about this. You may also notice that I do not have the left trigger in. I use the left trigger for everything. I use it to wave dash. I use it for L canceling. I use it for shield, rolling, everything. There's not a single thing that I never, in regular play, ever push that. Which is why this very trigger, I have used in all of my controllers for like the last like year or two. So every new controller I buy, the one that I'm making sure that is the one that like the one that I decide is the main controller I'm going to be using, I always take this very specific trigger out and put it in the new controller. I always do that. And that's because this is the nicest trigger I have ever felt in my life, and I am so used to the way it feels, and I love it so much. And so that is not to say that these triggers are bad. In fact, they are, I think, excellent replacement triggers. However, the reason I did not put it in, some people might be pointing out, oh, well, you can just take the external part, and this is actually one of the triggers that has the metal brace on it, which is part of why I like it so much. You can just take the metal brace out, and then you can put the spring in, and you put the spring in and use the button from the other trigger. And yes, I could. However, I was noticing that it's not as responsive as it should be. I haven't really noticed it much on this side because I don't use this, but when I was pushing up and down and I was wave dashing and moving around in game, I was noticing that it wasn't coming up as fast as it should. Occasionally, depending on where I pressed it, if I pressed it on the outside, it was okay, but if I pressed it closer to the inside, if I pressed it closer to the inside right here, it would get stuck on its way coming back up. And people I have heard complain about that with new Smash 4 controllers. So the thing is, I don't think this is specific to MultiShine Designs triggers. People have said on the website that they have noticed some differences with the triggers, and I think that's mostly because it's people who are playing on slightly worn down triggers. Now, like I said, I originally had the white one in here, and I love the look of it. Personally, I think it looks better with the white one than the gray one because it matches everything else. So I had to swap it out. But when I was doing that, I noticed that on this trigger, the side area is worn down so much. Like there is a ton of shaved off plastic where it's been all rubbed down, and the same is true of a little bit in the front. You can't really see it from here, but if I were to take it out, you could. So that was one thing that I noticed. So this is an L button from another trigger, from one of my secondary controllers, and I don't think I'm going to be able to focus this to show you, unfortunately. But maybe you can kind of see. I don't believe that you can, which sucks, but that's how it is. It's worn down a little bit on the front, and most importantly, it's worn down a little bit on the sides, which is where it was sticking. Now, I have hope for the trigger, or the left white trigger that I got in the set. So I put it in one of my, see, this is the original D-pad, and it's much nicer. I have put this trigger in a different controller, and my hope is that I can wear the sides of this down so that I can use it more effectively in here. And I actually have noticed that I do not feel the sticking at all in this controller. So this controller is my traveling controller. It doesn't have any like paint or anything or any much custom stuff besides the D-pad and now this. And it's what I throw in my backpack because I don't have a controller case, and it's actually a beautiful controller, and I like it a lot. But so the idea is I use this one a fair bit. I don't like to take this one traveling unless I'm going to a tournament because it looks nice. So if I'm just going over to a friend's house or something, or I'm not sure if I'm going to, and I just like need to leave a controller in my bag, and on the off chance I might play, the one I leave is this. And this one gets used by people when they come over and and forget their controller or don't have a controller. So I don't notice like the unresponsiveness of the trigger on this controller at all. I don't notice it when it's plugged into this, and I think part of what has to do with that is the fact that this has a layer of paint on it. So it's very possible that the paint layer is affecting the usefulness of this trigger in this controller. So my plan is to, you know, keep using this, this secondary controller. Keep using that. Look at that, you know, so as to wear this down a little bit, and then take out this, not the entire trigger, but just the plastic part. Take it out and transplant it back into here when it gets worn down a little bit more. So, you know, I'll use this for a bit and check it out again. All in all, would I recommend buying MultiShine Designs custom buttons? Absolutely. For $10, even if you only end up using the face buttons, or the face buttons and the start button, and or the D-pad, or you only use the triggers, or like you only use like a couple of the buttons, excellent deal for $10. That's a good deal. Definitely recommend these. I am very satisfied with my purchase. Would I recommend the sticks? If you are a color perfectionist and you want your C-stick to match everything else, absolutely. I recommend it myself. I think this is the greatest C-stick that you can actually put in your controller. One thing I forgot to mention, besides being bigger, it is actually also more square, which you can probably tell. So this is actually more square than this. This is more rounded. And this is, in my opinion, the best C-stick, the best possible C-stick that you can have on your controller. So if you think that having the best possible C-stick on your controller is worth it for $10, and you're not really planning to use this, that's okay, I don't need it. If you're not really planning to use it, then yes, it is most certainly worth the $10. If you really want to get your money's worth and you're thinking, I really want to be able to use both of the sticks, I can't really recommend it unless you really want to put the time. Into like getting used to how sticky this thing is in the controller, because it really does not feel good. It's quite rough. But if you mostly just want it for the C-stick, it's fantastic. So with that said, out of 10, what would I rate these buttons in terms of quality and price? I'm gonna give them a solid 9 out of 10. Not everything is perfect about them. There are a few flaws, namely the Z button, the analog stick. I'm not going to count the trigger thing as a flaw because it's just that it hasn't been worn down yet. So I think that'll be fine, given a month, maybe 2. So I'm not super worried about that. But besides that, it's a beautiful button set. The buttons are very high quality. They feel as close to OEM as I have ever felt with custom buttons, and I 100% recommend them. So I'm going to give them 9 out of 10. Thank you very much, MultiShine Designs, and thank you for watching. Have a sensational day.